Bam! Good evening, my friends. Welcome to another exciting episode of The Professionals, the rotating show that goes between the six professionals. We do it alphabetically, and today we land on Nolan. Tonight, we're going to talk about the future of comics, where we see it going. We're going to put on our prognosticator hats, look into our crystal balls, and try and figure out what direction the floppies are going to go. They're going to be around. Manga, crowdfunding, the distribution methods, all that kind of stuff. And time will tell if we're right. So you should record this episode, keep it, and then you can look back and say, these idiots got it all wrong. Or they were geniuses, one of the two. So speaking of geniuses, I don't have any here, but I'm going to bring the bros in instead. So first off is the core draft man himself, Mr. Andy Smith.
Hello.
Hello, Andy. How are you doing tonight?
Doing damn fine.
Okay.
Damn fine.
Excellent. All right. Yeah. Then we have the Wraitharoni.
It used to be the San Francisco treat, but I don't think anything coming out of San Francisco is a treat anymore. So,
stop it, big boy.
Treat is now. It's a human turd.
Yeah, right. That's Wraitharoni right there. It's the San Francisco street treat.
Street treat. It's a street treat.
Yep.
And exactly. This show wouldn't be anything without some boom to it. So
that's right.
Let's add some boom to the room, Mr. Dan Fraga.
It's like a boom.
What is up, gentlemen?
Hello. We're missing two of our guys tonight. They will be here.
You know what's slowing them down? Wind resistance from their hair.
I know.
Exactly.
Look at us.
That must be it. That must be it. Well, we all know art's late. So, that just happens. When you're old, you can't look at the sundial the way you used to.
Yeah.
And Billy, he has American Legion meeting or something like that. So he'll be in a little bit. But until then, we will try to entertain you with our prognostications and talk a little bit about the business end of comics. So we're going to keep this very conversational. And, I'll toss some stuff out and anybody can chime in if they have an opinion on it. Why don't we start with what we define as comics in the United States, the floppies, the monthly periodicals, which is what got this business started. They're having some hard times. We define the comics industry by the big two here, Marvel and DC, but there are many other publishers as well that are out there. But if those two aren't healthy, then the industry isn't healthy, at least for now. So what do you guys think about the condition of the market for serialized periodical comics?
Well, I think like all good things come to an end eventually. I mean, there's, when you see something like Mad Magazine disappear off the shelves, you're kind of like, wow, this is reality now, And I don't think comics will end, but I'm curious to see if they can maintain monthly floppies, especially as the price continues to grow per issue, right? So we got like $5-6 books now, right? Mm-hmm. And it seems to me like the better value suddenly is, well, if I pay $25 for like what Alex Ross just put out, $25 for a 64-page graphic novel, and I'm getting an entire story, maybe that's a better reading option than the monthlies. And we know at some point it's going to end, right? I mean, it's inevitable. Things change, technology changes, but the bigger question I think is, what is it going to morph into, right?
It's going to evolve.
Because I don't think at the way the pricing is going and the trouble that now DC, seems to be having with distribution, and then of course Marvel, doing their distribution through, was it Penguin or somebody else was handling it? I mean, to me that starts to you're starting to look at the writing on the wall a little bit and say, okay, things are going to change here from this comic shop format that we've been in since 1980 or whatever. And it's no different really than things were on the newsstand for decades. And then they were like, okay, sales are dropping. We're getting squeezed out of distribution from the magazine distributors. What are we going to do? Well, it's going to die. Well, no, then up cropped the comic shop and it saved the industry basically. And they were following that model for a while, but that looks like that's coming to an end. So the next question then is, if book publishers are taking this over, are we going to see graphic novels be the way to go forward as opposed to these monthly books?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think.
Go ahead, Andy.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, so most of the comics are still, because you said $5.99, $6.99. Obviously, there are some like that, but the average is still $3.99, which is still expensive. And the only reason I know that is because, like a dork, I still go every Wednesday to the funny bookstore. Most of the time, I walk out with a back issue. So, but that's why I like going, because I can hunt for something else if there's nothing new, because I'll still follow artists anyhow. I think like Aaron said, we're definitely in a big moment of evolution and change. And I wouldn't be surprised if I still think 5 years from now, there will be monthly comics. I do. Depending how many there are could be very different.
What about 10 years from now?
10 years from now, I just don't see print going away. Now, it might be putting out just trade paperbacks, and that's it.
But you said monthly comics. So
oh yeah. 10 years from now, no. I'll probably be the only one here that says 10 years from now, I bet there still be some monthly books coming out. I really do. I think Marvel and DC can right the ship if they get better leadership, and control, like the Zasloff guy seems to be. I think they can easily right the ship, because I mean, look, I'll say it. I don't hate those companies. I hate what they're putting out. But if they got rid of that and was putting good stuff out, I'd still buy a good Batman book or Green Lantern or something like that if it was good. But there's just, they're not right now. Mm-hmm. I definitely think it's going to head towards maybe licensing stuff out to cut down on the overhead of building space, editorial, and in-house stuff. Because what's the point? I mean, even if they didn't license stuff out, they could still run their company the way they do and just have editors all around the country and stuff, just like freelancers are, sign in for like a Zoom meeting once or twice a day and do stuff that way. They don't need to pay those overheads when it comes to rent and all that garbage.
I think Aaron hit it on the head with the price point. It's getting to the point that the dollar value for a 20-page comic, which is filled with ads, whether it be $3.99 or $6.99, that you have to invest in continuity. You have to buy a whole bunch of issues, especially when they cross them over and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of expenditure and a lot to ask on a collector and a fan at that price point, when you could buy the trade paperback, or if they just designed the whole thing to be a graphic novel that you would maybe spend, $40 for, but bam, you've got this big book.
That's the future right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the model. I think what they're going to have to do if they do that is, and it'll take a couple years, but once they get it in the pipeline to where basically you can put out a Batman 1 month, because it's $40, right? Go by your price point. Say it's a $40 thing, right? So if there's a Batman 1 month and then the next month there's a Superman, or not even every month, it could be every 5 or 6 weeks. But as long as you have them come out close enough to where you're getting that customer to come in on that regular, semi-regular basis, I think that could work. Instead of having 50 books come out from DC in 1 month, 2 trade paperbacks, but it's just getting the stuff in the pipeline. So it is, coming out.
Well, yeah, I mean, look what's selling. It's the manga format, and it's not necessarily that they read, the other way and all of that. It's that they're these little digests that sell for about $12-15, and you know, it's hyper action. It's all the stuff we enjoy. It's just, it's a format that kids get into.
Right.
Yeah. There's only what, like 3-4 panels on a page on those things.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's you know, cut to the chase and get to it. And the interesting thing about manga is that there's no genre off limits.
No.
Whereas our American comics is pretty much, you know, we are superheroes. That's it. And that wasn't always the case. The publishers were real publishers, and they would always go on the whim of the public and what they were into. When westerns were in, man, there was a million westerns. When a movie came out, then there was an adaptation or something for that movie. You know, but now it's they sort
and that's where Marvel really dropped the ball. I mean, for doing, what's up, Art Taber?
How you guys doing?
Artemis,
good. For really knocking a home run for the first 10 years of their movies, you know, the Marvel movies. What idiot was like, I know what we should do. We should put out these preludes. No, put out an adaptation. Adaptations, I mean, in my mind, I always bought adaptations because I like seeing the difference. You know, I like seeing who they got to draw it or write it. I like seeing the adaptation of, like, how are they going to take this 2-hour movie and do it in a comic? I didn't buy any of those dumb preludes because they were just, who cares?
I'll tell you, I never liked adaptations because I never thought, I thought that the comics were limiting themselves by the limitations of the movies. You know,
Right. I'm with you,
I
Graham.
always thought the comics were better.
There was
I
a
think-
handful. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it's like a dead horse. We've heard it repeated several times. I mean, even Bancroft did a cartoon of Cecil talking about it. But when these movies were out, where was Tony Stark? When these movies were out, where were these characters? Weren't they should have at least, you know, when your kid goes, "Hey, I want a new Iron Man book," and it's Riri Williams,
Right.
Are you talking about like adaptations, like you know, the great Walter Simonson Aliens or the Doom?
Yeah, some of those are really good.
Yeah, I mean, not all of them are good, but a lot of them are. You know, the Batman by Ordway was great.
Yeah. Well, look at it this way, though. When Star Wars came out, and I brought this up on another stream in a different conversation, but same type of idea is that when Star Wars came out, they had it was Alan Dean Foster, I guess, did the Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which was the follow-up novel to the Star Wars movie, because they knew there was only going to be 2 or 3 years for the next movie came out, right? So they jumped on that immediately and started coming out with Star Wars novels that took off where the movie left off, right? And started moving it forward. And I think, and a lot like, you know, someone like Stephen King, who really just cranks stuff out, right? And these guys that write these, you know, Game of Thrones or, you know, some of these other series novels, Harry Potter, whatever, right? People buy those novels, they read them, and then they're on the edge of their seat till the next novel comes out, right? And I can see that sort of being a process or a template for graphic novel production on a larger scale, right? So you're getting 64 pages, 80 pages, whatever it may be. You're getting a 4-issue miniseries collected in 1 volume or a 6-issue. I mean, crap, that's what they're doing anyway, right? They're writing 6 issues of floppies so they can combine them as trade paperbacks. And there's no reason why you couldn't graduate to that being sort of the regular way and distribute those through Amazon or bookstores and to a certain degree digital, because there's always going to be an audience for that. Although I don't know if it's ever going to be big enough to, you know, eliminate print completely. But I think the way you approach it, get regular books out.
Thank you, Nicholas. Appreciate that. What do y'all think the vetting process to be allowed to license a Marvel DC character would be? I don't think
they care enough.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're going to be licensing out characters piecemeal. Somebody's going to get the license to license all the stuff.
Right.
I don't think they're going to be licensing Batman over to this guy and Superman over to this guy. You know,
right? that would be too much of a headache, because if they did that, if it's like Aaron just got Batman and you got Superman, and Aaron's like, I got this great story, I want to use Superman, it's like tough.
Yeah.
I've brought this up.
Doesn't make any sense to do it that way, because you have an entire universe and you can make way more money if you went, hey, here's the DC universe or the Marvel universe or whatever, because there's always going to be characters that are going to be harder to sell, and aren't going to mean anything without the universe. There's a lot of those characters that are so supported based on the other characters or the other books. So I don't see them ever just like dismantling their universe and selling them piecemeal.
Well, what I would say is, if I had the money and they were willing to do it, one character which I think should stand alone, and that's
Brother Power the Geek.
Superman.
Yeah.
What makes Superman special is that he is Superman. When you look at the Adventures of Superman TV show, it was so great because the world knew this guy was out there, and there was only one guy like him.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that, and the same thing with the Fleischer cartoons. There was nobody else like Superman.
Well, I would take it even further. I think there are a lot of characters, especially in the DC universe, that to me work better without the universe. And Superman is one of them.
Yep.
Batman, holy crap, I hate him in most DCU stories.
Yeah.
I think he works best as a solo, standalone character in his own universe. And then the one that I think got totally destroyed was it Fawcett with Captain Marvel, which is he was great. He was a great character. In the DCU, he's not so great, and to a lesser extent, Wonder Woman. I think Wonder Woman would benefit better just a self-contained universe.
I mean, but look at what you just said. You just picked the four main ones from the Golden Age that all basically did do that.
Right, and that's why.
Right. And they were able to do that and continue. I mean, how many issues of Superman was it before? Well, it was just him. I know they did World's Finest, where they put Batman and him together. But as far as I know, a lot of the Superman books in the Golden Age, they didn't put Batman in it at all.
In World's Finest, they were individual stories. They did not meet in those books.
Yeah.
It wasn't until Superman, I forget what number, in the 1950s, where they actually did a story where Batman and Superman met. But in the 1940s, World's Finest was Superman and Batman in the same comic, but not in the same story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Brohawk in the chat is saying Marvel and DC movies killed comics. I don't believe that comics are dead. In fact, just because, I mean, I'm the one that's got, out of everybody here, I'm the one that has little kids, right? And I've brought this up before. I've used the Pokemon model before. Like Harrison, my 8-year-old, isn't your like a typical comic book reader. And if I had handed him a Pokemon comic, said, check this out, he would have said, nah. But because he found the card game and then saw that there was a cartoon, and then once he found out there was a comic for it, he wanted the comic because it was part of this complete thing. So our path when we were kids was different, because I've used this example before too. 1991, subjectively, no one drew a better Wolverine than Jim Lee. That Wolverine, at least for the comic buyer or just the world, that Wolverine was the best iteration of Wolverine. It was better than the cartoon, better than the toy. There were no movies, better than the video game. That was the entry point, was the comic. And that's where the world we come from. But now it's different. The path is different. So what we have to do for the future is understand that path, and because the material is, if it's good, it's going to get read, but it's getting the interest for the material. So part of that is being in a way where the kids are, because we need new readers as well, right? I love our readers, but I talked about this with you, Andy, when we were at South Carolina. People are staying on our ride; they're not getting on, and new stuff isn't coming. New audience isn't coming in. They're like people that have read comics for years, trying to get a 10-year-old. I want a 10-year-old to read Black Flag. I want him to read Cord Wrath and Wrath of God and Black and White and the Nolan verse. I want them to read that. But how do we get that the future is exploring that.
Well, see, that's been my argument forever since I broke into the industry, and I saw it clearly. There's no advertising. There's no advertising. There's no direct connection to young readers, to kids. You know, there just isn't. And the thing is, this is the thing that frustrates me and angers me, because I used to keep up on this stuff. I used to care, you know, and you'd go like to the fanzine and you'd read like, oh, well, the reason this series isn't doing well is because of this writer or this story arc or whatever. So the creative team are always the ones that take the hits. But I've also seen really, really great stuff. Before I left DC, there was Hawkman, you know, Rob Liefeld and Mark Polton and Joe Bennett and myself working on that book. It was great. Terminator Deathstroke, the same. These were great books. But DC didn't know what to do with them.
Right.
And they didn't know how to advertise them.
Good content is absolutely
went into
key.
obscurity, and then they just died. And so the thing is, get down, advertise these things, promote these things, get them in front of people.
Where's the first? I'm going to ask this at everybody because there's a point to the question. Obviously, good content is key, right? But you can have the best content in the world. Where's the first place you ever bought a comic? Mine was a gas station.
Yeah, mine was a 7-Eleven convenience store.
Yeah, convenience.
Are they there anymore?
No.
Nope.
No.
Hello?
Nope.
Yeah. All right.
Because it's, you know, in the 80s.
But that brings up a great point, Dan, and let's explore the next avenue, which is important, and that is distribution.
Right.
You know, at one time, newspaper distribution was the only way to get it out there, and newspapers and magazine distribution was huge. You could get it into everywhere. It wasn't very profitable. There was returns on them. And in Marvel's case, they were limited by how many books they could actually put on the newsstand.
Right.
Because DC controlled the distribution network until 1968. And that's when Marvel started to explode and expand their line.
DC actually distributed the Marvel books at first.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I know
until
that for the people that might not have got it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I understand what you meant, but I think some people don't realize that you know, Marvel was being, you know, in the early days it was DC's distribution.
Right, and they were only allowed to distribute so many copies of their books, or so many titles of their books a month. And then they broke out of that in 1968, and that's when you saw Tales of Suspense, Tales to Astonish break off into Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man.
And you know what? I didn't even know that at the time, but just you said that. Like when I was a kid, I didn't have access to the Marvel books. Like in my area, there were no Marvel books on the rack. Wow. It wasn't until the late 60s, early 70s did I actually have access. So I didn't know that Marvel had started this, you know, putting out their own books and getting them onto the newsstands and things like that at that time. Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, so then the question becomes, I will venture to say that our first encounter with Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, all the main superheroes were from media and not comics. I mean, I can say that, you know, the Spider-Man cartoon, the Batman TV show, and the Adventures of Superman were my triple threat.
I met Spider-Man at the mall when I was 5 years old.
You had a personal meeting.
I met Spider-Man at the mall. I didn't know who he was. I just thought he was cool, and then I saw him on Electric Company.
You know, right? Yeah, right. So it's other media.
You got a $20 super chat too.
Guys. Hey, Leg Kick One, thank you for that $5 super chat. Don't you guys think the halting of cartoons on Saturday morning and toys has also impacted comic books?
Probably,
for sure. That
I'm sure it has.
You brought that up. I mean, you kind of brought that up, Graham.
Graham, you got a $20 from Jason Smoot up there. Don't.
Oh, well, thanks. Smoot in the hoot.
Give a hoot. You know, give a thumbs up.
Oh, there he is. There he is. Thank you, Jason, for that $20 super chat.
That ain't cheap.
That is a good cigar.
Yeah.
Great stream. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Hopping in here. We'd love to see you in the bros chat.
But yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I saw before I bought my first comic, it was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It was obviously Batman reruns.
Right.
It was just, well, like Leg Kick brought up, just a bunch of cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons and stuff. I mean, you do have superhero shows out there, but they're 8 o'clock prime time at night. That's not when I was watching Batman and reruns. Batman and reruns for me was on the weekends in the morning, I think.
Well, and Dan made a good point about the stores too, because even if we didn't discover them in 7-Eleven, we knew where to get comics when we wanted them, right? And it was pretty easy access to go grab some.
I remember the big revelation, because I'm like Graham, where the 66 Batman TV series was my gateway, and I wasn't like comics, I was Batman, specifically Batman. And so then I still remember to this day where at they used to call them 5 and dimes, now it's like a thrifties and stuff like that. And so we went in there and I saw this rack of comic books and there was a Batman comic and I went, holy crap. Like my whole world had changed right then and there. And so, I begged, borrowed, and whatever, with my mom, I promised I'll be good. And she got me the book. And after that, I was like, that's it, man, I'm hooked. And then there's this whole, there's all these other titles and stuff like that you can start getting, because I know you guys are exactly like me, where you would basically buy every book on that spinner rack, because it would be a whole month, right? Yeah. So eventually you'd go with all the books you want, right? And then you'd start picking through the ones that
you got to sample
questionable about. It's like, well, maybe.
And on that day, Art to Bear learned what an erection was.
Oh, damn. And now I don't know what the rules are with, I don't know if it's FCC or the Federal Trade or whatever. I know at a certain point in the 70s and early 80s, you weren't allowed to have a toy show, like a G.I. Joe, for example, and then have a G.I. Joe toy ad afterwards. You weren't allowed. And at a certain point, they were allowed. And that was the explosion us 80s, 70s, and 80s kids really experienced, because you were getting basically a half hour show that was an advertisement, So I wonder now if it's allowed, if they could. I mean, what's a 3 second bumper of, do you enjoy this? There's a comic book. Check for your local comic book store. Right.
That's the thing. That goes back to what I've always complained about with Free Comic Book Day is you'd think that one day all the companies could come together and go, all right, let's do an ad for Free Comic Book Day.
Super Bowl, dude.
And put it anywhere, but not just in comic shops, because everybody already knows in comic shops.
By doing that.
Preaching
the whole idea is to bring new people in.
Right. They only advertise in a place where everybody already goes.
Well, you know what? I talked to Gareb Seamus about this, and Gareb said they tried this. So Gareb was like the main instigator, and he went to the different publishing companies, and he said, hey, we'll get a kitty. Everybody put a certain amount of money in, and then we'll make a general advertisement for comic books. And if retailers want to come in, then at the bottom of the screen, you could have the retailers where you can get the books. So you advertise the books and then where you can get the books. That was the whole idea of the commercial. And then guess what? All the publishers decided to argue what books would be advertised, who would get the, this, that. And then they just kind of imploded. They just destroyed each other and destroyed the idea. And
like Game of Thrones.
Yeah. It's crazy. This industry they do it time and time again.
Well, the sad part about this industry, and the thing that I noticed, at least in my 30 years, Andy and I kind of share the same amount of time in the industry, but I worked in a comic book shop before that and all that. The one thing I notice about the comic business in general is that a lot of the people in power are not professionals. And I don't mean that they're not in a professional position, but it's
they're
almost
not businessmen.
Yeah, they're like, I love comics, therefore I should be, an executive that makes executive decisions at a comic company. That doesn't. You have to have a business mind, a marketing mind, and be able to abstract. Obviously, have the love. Everybody should have the love, because this is a beautiful thing we have with comics. It's not just what we enjoy and do. It's just as important as books and movies and television. It is a thing unto itself and must at all costs be preserved. But a lot of times it's like hobbyists that get put into these positions, and people that comic book stores are hobbyists. They're not businessmen. And people like, not going to name names, but like I'm going to name a name. Someone like Bob Wayne at DC, who was a retailer who got elevated to his position. Not going to knock Bob, but just as an example, what does he know outside of working in a comic book store about true business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just sell to their own. You know, they just sell to the retailer, but they're not selling to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead,
and Michael Deesh. Thank you for that $10 super chat. That's a good cigar. I was introduced to Batman by the Adam West TV show. Saw my dad standing at the grocery store magazine stand laughing at a Mad magazine. That got me going on books. Next came horror comics and more.
Yep.
We're gateways.
Yes.
You're forced to read these books as a child, as you're going up and in high school, you read the classics and all that kind of stuff. But you have to develop that desire to read, because it's the greatest gift you can have is the love of reading. That's where you can learn. That's where you can teach. It's so much comes from reading. And comic books, especially for young boys, who are much more active, they want to do things physically and not sit down and read some boring ass book. But boy, you put a comic book in front of them with all the slam bang action and the bright colors and the exciting stories and all that kind of stuff, and it goes right to them. And they start to develop this love for reading, and then boom, then they're reading, novels and
right.
Books.
Yeah.
The biggest
like comic books are like you have your books when you're a little kid in the nursery, that you get read, like the Dr. Seuss stuff, and then you graduate to comics, and then if you still like action adventure, you're reading Jules Verne's or Edgar Rice Burroughs or Robert E. Howard or these books, and so then you graduate to those things. But I want to go back to Dan's point where we were talking about business minded. There's one thing that kind of gets overshadowed a lot in the image boom time. And I knew all those guys, and I know you did too, Dan. They were all business minded. It was no coincidence. These guys weren't just artists. These guys were business minded, each and every one of them. And so when these things started changing, the paradigm shift and the money was there and all this other stuff, it was because that's what their focus was on. It didn't just happen. Those guys pushed it in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Randy Howell, thank you for that $5 Canadian super chat. Every 6 months for a period of 2 weeks, allow people to read last year's comics online for free and advertise the heck out of it. Not a bad idea.
No, isn't really one of the biggest problems, and they were complaining about this when they did it, and it's just continued to be a bigger and bigger problem as the decades have gone by. But when comic books were taken out of the newsstand and put into comic book shops, they immediately started targeting an older audience, right? Because those are the guys that could access the comic book store and had the money, and comics became more and more expensive, so they became less and less a throwaway item. Video games, other types of things were coming up, taking kids' attention away from them. And so then you've got in our education system going to crap, right? So now reading is less important. Actually, educating our students are less important. So you have younger generations less interested in reading. And so who's supporting the comic industry? Guys like us that are now 40 something, 60 something, the last generation of readers. And so all that content has gone towards people our age so that they can enjoy it. We can keep that audience, but nothing has gone into really cultivating young readers and bringing new readers in like they used to be. Comics used to be all ages. And that's not to say they were dumbed down, but they had, that's why they had the Comics Code Authority, right? Is so that they controlled the content. So, a 10-year-old kid could pick up Spider-Man and it would be okay. But a 25-year-old guy could pick up Spider-Man who's been reading it for years, and it would still be, quality in there that he could get into.
Just thank SKM real quick for the $1.09 super sticker. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And so I think that's the equation that everybody's been trying to solve and haven't been able to, is how can we get comics so that they are accessible to younger readers so you can get them hooked.
Right.
And,
I think if you change the market, if you started getting them into places where kids go, I think the
but that's online now, isn't it, Art? Do kids go anywhere, or do they go online?
No, but the content would change on its own. Like I don't think you need to change the content to attract the kids. I think you need to find where kids are, get them in the hands, and then organically it'll shift over because you'll know that that's your fan base, that's your audience. You'll tailor it to them.
Yeah, but you can't stick a black label comic
into.
Wait a second, you can't stick a black label comic in the hands of a 12-year-old.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So you have to be aware of that if you're trying to get a younger audience, that there has to be some quality control in your main books, which we've had for most of our careers. Even when the Comics Code disappeared, there were still rules, and you could push it so far. And then if it went too far, they're going to go, okay, well, we'll make that a Vertigo book, or we'll make that a black label book.
Yeah, I remember.
Hold on a second.
There's always been kid books. You just don't market it and sell it to those kids. Like you don't like wherever you're selling the books, like in the mass market areas, Walmart, whatever, Targets. You don't put your whole line of books there. You just put the line of books that is tailored to that younger audience.
Right.
And then you can still have your books in the direct market or bookstores or whatever as your more adult content. Adult content books have always existed in comics.
Yeah.
Grown adults used to read The Adventures of Captain Marvel or Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
They used to read Carl Barks, the Disney stuff. And I'm going to make a statement, and you guys, I want you to chime in on it. The Comics Code Authority stunted the art form of comics.
100%.
Go.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
It did, because obviously there's a power to limits, but there also a lot of what made things exciting. They made off limits.
Right.
Those guardrails. Limited people, and
comics would have grown faster into more like the European art form.
I'll give you a little anecdote. So I was working on Wolverine when the Twin Towers got taken out. And during that time, Marvel got really sensitive, and they decided Wolverine couldn't smoke anymore. And they instead of asking me to redraw, they had somebody in the bullpen just redraw. So he would be sitting there, doing these faces with nothing in his hand. Then I got a script the very next month. So that was like number one. Then I got a script the very next month where Wolverine and Ogun, his master, are attacked by several ninjas. And I was told by my editor, listen, things are kind of crazy right now. And I think it's probably right around when Marvel was going to sell. I don't really understand what the impetus of this rule, but Wolverine and his master are supposed to kill 40 ninjas, but I'm not allowed to show blood. I'm not allowed to show any slicing. I'm not allowed to show no, like it was literally like, here's this battle, but you're not allowed to draw the battle. Like that's what, and when you look at that issue, I did everything and suggested silhouettes, kicks, surprise looks, and then Wolverine and the Master standing with all the ninjas laying around. But like what I wanted to do, I couldn't. The exciting thing I wanted to do, I wasn't allowed to do.
Well, I want to go back before we go too much further, but it's like Graham's original about the Comics Code thing. I thought Frank Miller had the best observation about this. So the Comics Code is the Comics Code, right? You can agree with it, you can disagree with it. It's the good housekeeping symbol. Anybody that knows, is older, knows what that is. So there's that aspect of it. But he said, kind of after the seduction of the innocent, after, all the trials and stuff like that, what the comic industry did was they ran scared. And this industry has been humbled and in that fearful state since then. There's no bravery. There's no, I mean, when you see the bravery, you see the reward. Like that's why, Frank Miller, that's why Alan Moore, that's why the 90s Image Comics, that's why Todd McFarlane, they weren't just business, they were also brave. They didn't give a shit. They pushed the envelope. They did these things. And I think what happened was psychologically it humbled the industry. So everybody was afraid to do anything. Everybody's scared. And if you think about, we all know artists, we all know writers, they all share the same thing. They're very humble. They're very like, kind of to themselves, and they don't want to make waves and things like that. And I think that that's what this industry had become because of the comics.
Well, I'm going to take a counterpoint, if I may, for the sake of argument.
No.
The reason the Comics Code came into play was because society, or certain aspects of society, parents, whatever.
Oh, doggone it. There
I
you
know.
go.
I had that click.
We do not like dissension here, repressive.
No, I'm going to come full circle here, but so there was a reaction, a public reaction to the content issue. So it was becoming problematic one way or another.
Yeah, because of the making people think that.
Well,
no. I just saw this cover this weekend in South Carolina. My buddy, he collects like the old school stuff. It was an EC crime comic, and on the cover, this guy is like shoving a woman's head into a burning stove, and her face is on fire.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a strong ass image. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, that's my point. But here's the thing: the Comics Code comes into effect, and I don't disagree with Art just said. But go ahead and read that, Graham, and then I'll make my point.
Thank you. Thank you, Stat0, for the $10 super chat. That's another good cigar. Kids like consistency, frequency, and accessibility. Same creative teams, lots to read and easy to find. All things American comics used to do well and don't do anymore. All of it is being done in manga.
Yeah,
that's some very good points there.
Here's the point I'm going to make.
Image Comics.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a more successful period in comics than the Silver Age? I mean, of course, the Golden Age, but that had other factors that made it comics sell so well. But the Silver Age was probably the most creative time in American comics, and that was under the code, right? And they were popular with college kids. Stan was doing the college circuit, and that was like the big thing for. It's just that it kind of cycled through, and then people started getting tired of it around 1970, and then they had to sort of reinvent themselves again, switching material, subject matter, different things to try and create interest in it. So I think there's always this problematic thing of everything being cyclical, and then, people just get tired of it and they want the next new thing. And so how do you keep it relevant? But I don't know that having a Comics Code really affected the growth of comics.
My point was more not on like the way the general perception from the consumer was. I'm just talking about how it affected.
No, I agree with that. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
The best comics didn't have the code though.
Right. And I would go
the drug comic that Stan wrote, with Harry Osborn on drugs.
Right.
No code. And it was the best. And Dark Knight, no code, the best.
Well, but look at, Miller worked under the code on his Daredevil stuff, and that stuff was great. So I mean, there was ways to get around it, and creative ways to get around it. And I don't, to me, it was no different than the restrictions they had on movies back in the 30s and 40s.
Right.
Before the 60s came around and everybody just went nuts. It was like they had certain ethical codes that they operated under, and they were still able to create really good content.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I think when
the Hayes Commission came in and put restrictions on film and ended that pre-code era, it required directors and writers to be much more creative in getting content across that was banned by them. But the creative ones did it, and they did it well. And the same thing.
Let me. Hold on a second. I just want to get this out there. Yeah, it is that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're stalking it.
Wait a minute. I'm going to fix this right now. Okay.
You can mute anybody you want whenever.
Troublemaker. Yeah, troublemaker. But I just wanted to your guys' point real quick is that the comics, the code, I think did help with like parents, like so they could see it and then they could know that this was okay for their children.
Right.
So
Good housekeeping.
Yeah, it was just a way of just like quickly saying, this is okay for your children.
Wholesome.
So I believe in a consumer marketplace that's a good idea.
Yeah,
but if those nudniks that were running around burning their comics and telling the kids they couldn't read the comics because of the EC violence and all that kind of stuff, those are the same people that throwing Beatles records onto fires.
Yeah,
do we want that? I mean, don't you want to? Yeah, I don't either. I mean, because that's why I'm saying is that the art form would have progressed a lot faster and would have ended up being a lot more interesting without that censorship going in there, and the market would have driven what came out of it. Stuff that was, what we call underground, would have remained underground. They would have been sold in head shops and in places where that audience is. And the publishers would figure out, okay, as Art said earlier, these crime stories that we're going to do, and we're going to make them like rated R movies. We will market those in a different place than we will Karl Barks's Donald Duck.
And keep them away from the kids. Yeah, keep them off the spinner rack. Do that. So I think that's more the answer versus like, censoring them or destroying them, like the EC stuff, because there's an audience for, a woman getting her face burned off or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's to each his own. It's not my taste, but I mean, there might be somebody who really likes it.
Just for a historical context real quickly, just to make a point, it really wasn't ECs that got everything in trouble. It was the EC knockoffs. If you go back and look, it was the people doing horror comics, not the EC, because EC was actually, they had some couple of horrendous covers, granted.
Sure.
But for the most part, it was very, this kind of wry sense of, black humor that was in the comics, and they were very clever. But it was the knockoffs of EC, these horror comics where, people getting stuff jabbed in their eye on the cover and faces melting. And like you said, women being thrown into fireplaces or being assaulted,
eyeballs exploding.
Yeah, exactly. That wasn't EC, but they took the heat for it.
True. That's true.
So, but anyway.
Yeah.
That was wholesome. That's all it was. Just wholesome entertainment.
Good, wholesome fun.
Good, clean fun. Good.
Hey, it happens in a lot of houses across the world.
But see, didn't you guys getting on the Comics Code thing, didn't you guys sort of enjoy, as a kid anyway, enjoy the idea that, okay, here's the spinner rack over here and it's got Superman and Spider-Man, and you kind of knew what your expectations were. But then over here on the magazine rack were these black and white magazines like Conan and martial arts. And you're like, ooh, I might get some action if I pick up one of these. So I kind of actually liked that separation that was made available.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the one that like there's beads and you go in and there's like boobies and butts.
The comic shop I went to in the 80s.
That's not a comic book, Dan.
The comic shop I went to in the 80s, though, they had an over 18 section.
Yes, they did.
And it was like Omaha Cat Dancer and stuff like that.
Right.
And it said over 18. And if you tried walking back there, they'd be like,
Hey,
they used to set up at San Diego Comic-Con like that too. There would be dealers that would have all these art books and European imports, but then there would be like a curtain area, and then there'd be the racier stuff, the Click and the Milo Manara stuff, and you could get all those European imports, but you couldn't go back there unless you were, I don't know that anybody was watching the door, but they did try to, separate it.
I always liked how dirty I felt coming out of those rooms.
You're a dirty boy, Art.
I'm talking about Savage Tales. You guys are talking about Omaha Cat Dancer.
Okay,
not exactly
so
the same thing.
Cherry Pop-Tart.
We've got distribution problem. Okay, so we're talking about comics and their futures, and some of the things that have to be addressed is that distribution problem. Right now, we can't go back to newsstands. Magazines are having just as hard a time. People aren't reading. The price point on that stuff is too high. So that's not an option. But if the goal is we got to get it into as many places as possible, or to as many people as possible, What's the answer?
Happy Meals.
How do we do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the internet in some way, shape, or form is the answer to this issue, because that's where everybody spends their time now, right? And Dan brought it up earlier that maybe we're heading into more of the and maybe Comicsgate is and the independent market right now, the crowdfunding market is pushing this direction, that maybe we do go into this European model of comic book albums, right? And so you get your hardcover or whatever, 80 page, 64 page, 84 page once a year, and you get your fix on that character. And then pretty soon you've got 10 books in this series of, you take any of the, whatever, the European books, Blueberry, whatever, something like that, where you've got this series of books that constitute basically maybe a 60 issue run of what we would think a 60 issue run is for a comic book. But we're going to have to start advertising those places, not just in our live streams, but finding, do we ever get money ahead that we can actually maybe take out some ads on other people's YouTube channels that are very different than what we're doing, but still might attract a reader. You're getting that stuff on our website so that we can actually sell stuff on our websites. Things like that. I don't see any other way, because like you said, the newsstand is not going to come back, right?
What I was saying earlier that connects to your point is, what is the what do they call it, sales funnel? Like, that's one of the popular marketing things or whatever. It's, we can look at our demographic. I know what my demographic is. My demographic is 25 to 60, and I see it on all of my social media if I look at the analytics. But then you got to go, well, how do I get 11 to 35? How do I get that? Where are they? What are my kids doing? They're looking at Facebook reel or YouTube reels, like funny stuff. TikTok. I fucking hate TikTok. Yeah. But they're looking at this short form funny stuff. But that's how these dances become cool. That's how a song like Old Town Road becomes cool. Is like they catch on because that's where the eyeballs are. And that's why, like, when I asked the question about gas stations and stuff, every kid is on a trip. Every kid goes into these places with their mom and pop. Walmart was the hope, but dude, they didn't do Walmart right. No offense to the what the Breitweisters did or anything like that, but a guy who knew they were coming, had to look for them. Oh, they're in the book section. Oh, they're after I've paid. Like, why am I walking past them after I've paid? Like, every time they're not in the toy section where they should have been. They should have been near action figures. They should have been by where kids go. Kids don't go into the book part. They don't. And the impulse buy by the register, they didn't do that. They put it around the corner. And I've been into like 5 Walmarts where each place was a place destined to fail.
Well, it's like you have to have volume selling clout, don't you, in those stores to demand placement?
Yes, you do.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Like, to that point, like, I think Walmart is too big of a franchise.
Well, it's an example, though.
But I'm just saying that's where DC was going too. I mean, that's where most people's minds go.
We should go to Five Below.
I'm thinking more like the old 5 and dimes, like the new five are like drugstores, like CVS's and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, they're way more open, and everybody goes there, and kids go there with their parents. So I think that's because also, like, there's too much competition in a Walmart. But when you go into a drugstore, there's very little for kids. You know what I mean? So if there's a comic rack there, then it's going to get their attention. Just like all of us, like, you would go into like a 5 and dime or whatever. There was only really the comic books, or
and
like
right up front.
Yeah.
I got
right up front when you walk into CVS. It should be right there.
Right. And I got most of my stuff at liquor stores of all places.
That's same. Yeah.
You started drinking at a young age then, is what you're saying.
Right.
I actually did. I was buying
liquor stores. They sold comics in liquor stores?
Yeah, and they like baseball cards and all kinds of stuff.
Well, that's a great point, because if you remember, when you wouldn't go into a grocery store like Safeway or Ralph's or whatever you have, Piggly Wiggly. That's not where you went to get comic books. You went into this little small convenience stores, and everybody knew that's where they were at, right? So that was all like, oh, get a Hostess fruit pie, get a pack of cigarettes, and there's a rack of comics,
Right.
And it's when you go into a big department store, you're right, it's lost back in there.
You know what's a great spot, and it's the impulse rack at a grocery store.
Yes,
because I mean, I end up buying magazines that I never go to the magazine rack, but I'll buy a magazine. Like,
well, that's where the Archie.
That's what I was saying about point of sale.
Archie used to be there, but they're not anymore. They've lost that spot.
The Disney Digest.
Yeah.
Well, what about the cereal aisle?
Here's the difference: is I would create comics for the impulse line. So I would create stuff that not necessarily for kids, but be as attractive as some of those magazines that are there. Something that's going to capture your eye, and not just be like the Digest. I don't think the Digest did very well there. They had a pretty sweet deal, and I talked to DC about sticking DC Digest in there, and they never did it. And they said there was all kinds of complications about it. They have to stock it themselves, and I forget what.
Yeah, they only own Time Warner, so Time Magazine, People Magazine, all those magazines were already there. Ooh, it's so hard to put a comic.
What if you stapled beef jerky to it? Instead of like a lakeside tattoo, it's beef jerky.
Yeah. You know what? I would create a spray that smells like old comics, and I would spray my new comics with it. And then when you're in the impulse line, you'll smell all the old comics, and you're like, I gotta have this.
That was the cookie people in the mall. They would spray the cookie smell
scent
in the air because you go, whoa, fresh baked cookies. I need that.
Yeah. But again, taking Marvel and DC out of the equation, and maybe you can't for this, but I mean, how much money does it cost to get that rack space right there at the front of the checkout stand? I mean, it's got to be expensive, right? I mean, they're just not going to give it to you because you have
rack space. I'm a big fan of rack space.
Exactly. The bigger the rack, the better.
Yeah.
But
the bigger the rack, bigger the space.
But I can see if you took, like, let's say you did a special. Well, I mean, it could be any one of our books. It could be an X-Men book, it could be a Spider-Man book. But let's just say, for the sake of since I'm the one telling this, the talking, you got this Wraith of God with a really cool cover, right? And it's sticking there, and it's a square bound, maybe magazine type thing, not a hardcover. And it's sitting there in there next to Time Magazine, or the 25th anniversary or 50th anniversary of Jaws or whatever. Which when those come out, I buy them immediately. But yeah, I mean, just with a really cool cover, a book, an X-Men book, a Spider-Man book, whatever, right there. You can't tell me kids aren't going to go, when they're standing there waiting for their parents to check out.
Well, there's a reason that the candy's there and all that other stuff,
Yeah, exactly.
And this is why digest styles don't work for comic books.
Maybe
the artwork is too intricate.
Right, when you shrink it down.
What if, I saw in the toy aisle, DC has just released these sort of throwbacks to the superpowers. But they also had these ones that are blister packed with toys. I wonder what the price point would be, to do that, like blister pack a toy or whatever. But I mean, the main thing is at least the way my mind works is you write out a list of problems, right? We talk about distribution. We talk about eyeballs, like people actually see them. Like, we already went around the horn. We all bought our stuff at gas stations and liquor stores and grocery stores, places that weren't comic book stores, right? And maybe that's symptomatic of the 70s and 80s, or Art, in your case, whenever you came from. Yeah, and but I think the idea, though, is to kind of like write down a list of the problems and then write lists of solutions and see how they connect.
Yeah,
there's a good part, real quick, Art, and then I'll let you go. There was, I was watching a documentary sort of on those kids in Taiwan that were trapped in the cave and how they rescued them, with the cave divers and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things they said was they got to a point where it was so bad, right? They just said the cave, they were like, this can't be done. And then the guy that was in charge of the operation said, okay, we've established it can't be done. Now tell me what it would look like if it could be done. Tell me the impossible. Right. How could we make this work? And then let's see if we can, make it happen. And that may be a way you have to look at this sort of distribution problem.
Failure is not an option.
Yeah.
Exactly. Failure is not an option, but you have to have really dedicated people. You have to have smart people, and you have to have committed people.
Right.
My thing is comic books have always, like, there's guys that have these great ideas. Like was a New 52, we're going to do digital, right? And then they were like, we're going to do commercials, and we're going to, do all this stuff. But the thing is, they do it for like 3 months, and then it gets too expensive. Like, none of these campaigns are ongoing. None of these things are long term. So the results never happen because there's not enough commitment. They always expect things to turn around instantly. So for me, like, I think it should be multi-pronged. Like, the comics industry also would have tunnel vision. They'd go, this is the way to do it, and then everything would go in that direction. I just don't think that's a successful template to use at all. For me, I would do multiple things at one time. Like, we have digital distribution. Okay, there's your floppies, right? Bring down the cost, use your digital distribution as floppies, right? And then have custom books for your retail, like stuff like we do, like boutique books, like really collectible, stuff. Market that to the retailer. They could still carry floppies if they wanted, but then, like DC and Marvel or whoever, then create a universal floppy, something that's low cost, that's aimed at attracting a new audience.
It has to be staged.
With that book, go into all these different markets. Every place you can possibly get a comic book, you do it. And whatever you have to give up, you do it. If you have to make them returnable, well, then you make them returnable. And also, whatever you do, DC, Marvel, whoever's listening, do it long term. Do it for 10 years. Like, figure out something that's going to get you to your destination over time. Because I think a lot of what these comic companies do is they have unreal expectations of things to change, right? We're going to give it 6 months. We're going to give it 8 months. We're going to give it a year.
Well, Art, I think you're right. Dr. Mask Retro Elixir says price point is a big problem. If you can do it alternate style for $1.99 at a drugstore or whatnot, it could be successful. Once you get into $4 or $5, kids are priced out. I think what you said is brilliant. I think a multi-pronged thing, because the problem with the price point right now at $1.99, let's say that was your new product. This is your product. Well, you can't really make a living. You can't make a profit because the sheer numbers at $1.99 and the cost of making it won't support itself.
Right.
But
particularly if you have to pay a distributor, because now you're cutting out.
But if the $1.99 book was a byproduct, like an entry level thing to get in, it's like if you look at these apps that these kids play, sometimes they're free, sometimes they're $1.99, but then there's in-app purchases, right? You abstract that out, and if you look at it as like, hey, here's a $1.99 book, that gets you in. Hey, you could also get this prestige format that's got more pages, you can get that, and you allow them, you want to know what's happening in this story 10 issues from now or whatever. The $1.99 could be the year behind. Or to the other chat's point, the free books or whatever, don't make them free, make them $1.99. It's almost like the Marvel tried it really hard with a True Believer, but imagine if those True Believers, because those books already came out and got paid for, imagine if they put out the Perez Avengers run now at $1.99, or the John Byrne X-Men at $1.99 now.
Well, also, and then just have a good marketing campaign, a way you can support these and the way you can advertise these things, because that's the main thing, because we all have created great product over the years for these publishing companies, some to less success, more success, whatever. But for me, it was all the best I could do, you know, and I think everybody working on the titles felt the same way. But it always came down to some third person that had to market it and sell it. So the thing I said it earlier, but I'll say it again, the thing I hate about the industry, or at least the industry we used to be attached to, was that everything started and ended with the creative team on the book. You know what I mean? Like you got the blame and you got the credit.
Oh, right.
But there was nobody else like that took the shame. Like, well, you didn't advertise it. You didn't get it into these markets. You didn't do whatever. You know, you let it down. When you look at these movies, when they greenlight a movie, say it's 200,000, well, usually half of that budget goes into advertising. So now all of a sudden there's $100,000 to, you know, put into advertising. Well, why can't you do that with a comic book?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Here's an interesting
one. Hold on, Aaron.
Yeah.
Lake Kick One has an interesting question. Graham Nolan, do you think to overcome the non-collectability of digital comics is by making them NFTs? My answer to that is yes. Chuck Dixon and I are involved in a company right now that's going to be doing just that. It's called Spin Rack. There's big announcements coming about that soon. So check out it's SpinRack.io on Twitter and SpinRack on Facebook, and go over and like those pages, and you know you'll get the announcements as we
super cool.
I didn't know you can turn a whole comic into that, because you know, Pat Lee has an NFT company called Ucolex.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been working with him for about 1.5 years on stuff, and I said, dude, what would it take to make a comic? And he said, generally speaking, it's like a file, a 3D file, or a single image.
Mm-hmm.
And the hurdle would be being able to turn the pages, or even a PDF, turning a PDF, which is like basically a multi-file, into one PDF. That was the challenge. So if this Spin Rack has overcome that challenge, that's pretty promising.
Yeah.
I thought NFTs were just one-offs too. So I mean, if you're doing that,
no, they're limited. Like,
oh no, you could print as many of them, print out as many of them.
You could do them like limited, like 1 of 1,000 or something.
Right, but
like
they're
that.
all unique though. Like
Yep.
if you did 100, there's only one of 100. There's only 2 of 100. You know what I'm saying? Each one is unique.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Let me toss this out to you guys. This is kind of backtracking a little bit to physical copies again. Taking inflation into account, okay? So comic books in 1990 were $1, okay? 1990. 89, 90, somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. They were $1, right? So by inflation standards, that would be a cover price of $2.20 now. But we're looking at books that are like $3.99 or twice that.
Yeah.
Okay. My page rate in 1990 was $85 a page. Okay.
Right.
Take into consideration inflation, that would be $183 today. But we all were making way more than that. Let's be honest.
What are your numbers there for the rate of inflation? Because that doesn't sound right.
And also, it's made.
I dropped into an inflation calculator.
What about like what the book is made from and what it costs to print a book? And Jonathan Hirsch, updates on Black Flag. I'm hoping to have my part finished by the end of this year.
I'm just operating under the assumption that, and it's probably not accurate, but just for easy math, that all the inflation, let's say, is consistent, which I know it isn't for different things. But if inflation is consistent, all the numbers should stay the same. But we've seen, prices for the talent. And I don't mean to be crapping on ourselves here, but according to this, we were all making way more money than people in the 90s were. And that's $85 was an entry rate. So maybe we're not. Maybe the money is right on par. Because if $183 would be an entry level.
No knock on your effort, but I don't feel like it's a sliding scale. Inflation is like you're using it as like the metrics for everything, but like take today's economy, the price of paper is more.
Right. But the thing is,
a straight line.
Yeah, but once we get rid of Biden, well, those paper prices may come back down. I mean, if you're looking at it like a 30 or 40 year span, it's kind of like like the stock market, right? It goes way up and it goes down, it goes way up and it goes down, it goes way up and it goes down, but there's a steady path of growth. So I'm not, obviously these are just,
but also they're offsetting for numbers too. You could sell,
right.
The average, if you got a dollar comic or whatever in 1990 and the average print run was, a couple 100,000,
right.
It's still making money. And that, like, what is the number one seller? Look up what was the number one seller in 1990. It was Spider-Man. But like, take a look at that versus what's the number one seller last year or this year.
Right.
Crowdfunded,
But that's what the industry has always done. And Paul Ryan told me this great story once. He was sitting in on a DC conference, right? And Paul Levitz gets up there and said to him, in front of all the editorial staff and all the main players, the artists and writers, and he goes, well, the bad news is, he goes, sales are down, but the good news is we're going to raise the prices to compensate. Right. So that's always been sort of the solution, rather than, okay, why are sales down? What can we do to pick sales back up?
Exactly.
It's always, let me just raise the price.
Yes. And there are people that, this is what frustrates me. There's people that it's their job to do this.
Right. But they're not good at it.
They have titles and they don't do anything. And most of those guys would make 2-3 times the amount that we did, actually creating something and doing something worthwhile. And that's the thing that always bugged me. It's just like, we're doing our part. We're creating content, every month we're killing ourselves and you're just not making it work. Like, oh, you're gonna up the cover price? Well, just sell more books. You can bring down the cost if you sell more books. But that's the way it's always.
But then the problem is we get the problem of sell more books. Like we have that list, sell more books, right? Mm-hmm. But then their solution is these shitty crossovers and these sort of forced summer events where you got to buy like 10
variant cover
10 titles, across their entire brand, and like, oh, let's make 10 X-Men and let's make 10 Spider-Man and let's, you know what I'm saying? Like that's
right. They never went back and addressed the core problem, which was, as Graham said, distribution. Right. They were stuck in this comic shop model and said, this is the best we can do. So operating in these parameters, this is the only way we can keep our funds the same, as to raise the prices. Or like you said, put Wolverine in every comic. That's their solution, which is an idiotic solution that doesn't solve the problem. And distribution but no one's wanted to tackle it. No one they're just like, oh, we'll settle into this. And then this is how we do things.
Well, it's harder. It's harder to actually deal with a real problem than it is just to pawn it off on a creative team and just say, well, the criteria is you need to start selling more books. Well, how? The base is only this big.
Right.
It doesn't expand. So how the hell do I do that? Well, you have to fool people and you have to trick people and you have to do this and you have to do that. Well, at some point, which is what is happening, is you're going to burn those people out. You know what I mean? Because they're going to go, you know what? I saw this last year and it went nowhere. So I'm not getting sucked in this time.
How many of you guys have been contacted by people that have backed your campaign and said, I've been out of comics for 10 years, but I saw what you guys were doing and it really got me excited again. And now I want to read your books. Right? I mean, I get that a lot. And it's, so you're right. There is a ton of burnout. People just got sick of the same old routine, and them just sort of this whole. It's like a black hole that's just sort of collapsing on itself, and no one is trying to figure out how can we get that expanded again.
Not nobody. We're talking about it.
It brings us back to the next level, and that is so let's say we got distribution worked out, and we all agree that it's irrelevant unless you can get people interested in your product, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So what we have right now is a company that doesn't want to be a publisher publishing. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're publishing product that nobody wants to read. So the next question becomes, what do? You are made the king of Marvel or the king of DC Comics, and you can make any changes you want to right this ship. and to make this now a publishing company, starting with your content, what do you do?
You want to go around the horn on that one?
Sure.
Andy.
I mean, first, I just, so there's one, like in the 80s, it was basically a Spider-Man book, X-Men, trim the fat. I love Silver, Aaron brought up Silver Age comics. One of the reasons I love them so much is a lot of those stories, if memory serves, and I know Aaron and Graham and you other guys will probably remember, weren't they mostly one and done?
Yeah, shooter like,
and they weren't like, oh, now you got to buy this book as well and this book as well. So I think you got to trim the fat of the amount of titles that go out, and get the stories back down to one and done, or maybe it does go over 3 issues, but it doesn't cross over into all these other ones. And then just the content of the type of stories they're putting out. You got to write the stories so everybody will like them, not just to, a certain group of people.
Okay.
Yeah, make it more universal.
Okay.
Right. And they were so universal back then, know?
Okay. Dan's he's muted.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, good.
My son was asking me a question.
Solve the industry's problems, Dan.
Yeah. Well, I want to piggyback on what Andy said, because I do feel like trimming it down is a way to go. I would not do the one and done. I would oversee it. I would hire the right people to oversee the flavor of things, or to man it. So, and I would hire guys that understood the characters. So, for example, this is old school, but go get John Byrne back for Superman, or go get Miller back, love it or hate it. This is for examples. Get Frank Miller on Batman. Get like the people that had the right voice, and hire the right teams to do it, and have somebody oversee it, like a single individual. Like the problem, obviously, if you have like not a dictatorship, but you look at someone like Kevin Feige, who oversaw at least phase 1 of Marvel, that was well done. That was orchestrated. It was put together in a very orchestrated way, and it lasted that arc. What was Iron Man was 2008 all the way up till about 2017 or whatever, when Avengers happened. That's a nice 9-year run of a cohesive thing, and if you had somebody doing that, or teams doing that on each book, and they maybe once a year have a reason for these things to get together, maybe that's what I would think.
Hey, Dan, to that point, I always hated the Justice League as an ongoing, right? Yeah. Because it doesn't make any sense that they're just hanging out in a satellite monitoring shit. These guys are super powered characters. I always thought Justice League should be an annual event. Like, I always thought, like, Justice League, getting those characters together would be something you look forward to. When I was a kid, there would be the Justice League Justice Society crossovers, and you like lose your mind. Like, there's just so many characters that you just loved it. So, like, to your point, I think you could do stuff like that, where you kind of have things that lead into a Justice League big epic event that becomes annual. Or, like, you guys remember annuals? Those things were cool too. They don't do those anymore. But like
the annuals were special.
Yeah,
right.
They were.
You look forward to them every summer.
I'm sorry, I want to add to this. No corporate interference. Like no. I'm serious. Like none of this mandated ESG. We don't do that in our comics. Right. None of that shit. Like open. What do they call it? Pie in the sky, open ended. Like, give us your best.
The DC and Marvel were fine until they got bought up by bigger corporations, and then it's slowly been crushing them, because it's easier as just a small company producing X amount of books and making $20 million profit a year or whatever it is, to say, hey, that's pretty good for us. But then when Warner Brothers buys them, or Disney, they're like, you guys are $20 million. You're not even worth our time, Right. And so that's got to be eliminated. And then secondly, is it my turn or is it Art's?
It's yours.
Okay. So what the first thing I would do is I would get like somebody like Chuck Dixon or somebody to write this 6-issue miniseries at Marvel, if I bought Marvel, and have Galactus and these big superpowered characters get into this war and destroy Earth. So everybody is dead. Okay. And then you open up like a alternative universe or something and start over. Okay. So I'm launching Fantastic Four, written and drawn by Graham Nolan. I'm launching Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm doing it a couple in a month, right? I'm not going to launch 20 titles in a month. I'm going to do 3 or 4, and you're going to get Iron Man, then you're going to get Thor, then you're going to get maybe the Avengers after that, just like they did in the 60s. I mean, that's how I'd bring them out, right? But all these characters would be not destroyed, but kind of just updated. Like, again, like Graham has a really good idea for the FF, and how do you update the FF, but it's still the FF, right?
He did that in the Ultimates.
Yeah, that was the Ultimate line, though.
Right, but again, this is not people standing around talking. This is actually characters doing things. So, and that's how I would create this line and grow it out again from scratch. Okay, then I would get myself an actual team of people that, like you said, businessmen, not comic book people, but go in and research and say, okay, where are the eyes from the 12 to 18-year-old? Where are those kids? What are they spending time doing? Then you create an advertising budget, right? And you advertise that. And you're advertising. It's like when Byrne redid Superman, that was they had radio spots for that. I mean, I was literally driving in my car, turn on the radio, and they're making this huge deal about Superman's being recreated. It was a huge deal. They put it in Time magazine. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge deal. Yeah. Yeah. And so you get buzz like that going, we're relaunching the Marvel universe from day one. You can start at the very beginning of Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
They try to do that with Ultimates.
Yeah, but they
also did that when they brought those Image guys in too.
Heroes Reborn.
Yeah, but they didn't. It wasn't. But those were just added characters to their already existing line. They didn't stop the line and start it over.
I just have one thing. Like I have been part of this, like New 52. The Ultimates. It inevitably becomes the same problem. You eventually get into continuity issues. You eventually have new teams coming in.
But those are unavoidable, Art. But it's so convoluted at this point, and there's so much garbage that we want to get rid of. The easiest way to do it is destroy the entire line and start over.
Yeah, but it eventually becomes that anyway. That's my point. It will eventually become the same thing that you're railing against. It's an inevitability. So I don't think that's the ultimate answer.
I think for promotion and advertising it is.
Advertising, but New 52 advertised, like you said, Superman did too. And I think advertising is the key, but long term, they always burn hot. Like they get a little bit of attention with this, parlay it into more. Get an advertising budget, hire people. There are people, there's New York ad agencies, man. There are so many people out there that do this for a living. Hire those guys, get in with a market strategy, market the hell out of this stuff, and get it out there. I think it's less the problem is the content as it is the marketing, if it's my turn to talk.
Yes.
Marketing to me is the key. I think the content will change. Like the content can change to whatever the audience that it's marketed towards. I think that's an inevitability. I mean, you saw a lot more artists come into comics when there was big money, when people were selling millions of copies. Look at all the artists that came out of the Image Revolution. Dan Fraga was one of them. You get these major talents that come out because there's money. You know what I mean? You can pay these guys so you can attract this good talent. So for me, going back to what I said before, I think the key is multiple things going on at one time and having a long-term goal in mind, because this industry has always been able to burn. They've always been able to burn hot for 6 months, 8 months, but they've never been able to sustain it. I remember Jim Valentino told me, he said, this is when I started as an apprentice with him. He said, DC always has good ideas. They cannot sustain it. They'll come up with these great ideas and it'll go for a while. They'll do really well. And then they'll just destroy it. They'll just burn it out. right? New 52 was a colossal success. People don't remember, like the first year, that thing was a huge success, but they couldn't sustain it. They didn't have an overall view. They really didn't have enough money to really market it and promote it the way they wanted to. So it ended up burning out. Do you want to read
bots in the chat? If we got mods, kill them.
Yeah. Any mods out there, please kill the porn bots.
Kill those guys. Yeah. And so for me, just to reiterate, like there's digital technology that it's relatively low overhead. You know, you don't have to have a warehouse. You don't have to have a distribution. You don't have to have any of those things. So for me, I would use the digital technology as a way to replace the monthly floppies. And then I would give retailers the option if they wanted to get those, or I would create a floppy just for them, because I know that some of them. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Cider Hype, thank you for that $5 super chat. His idea is mothball every hero created before 2012. Superman deserves to go home to Lois once and for all. Reboot everything left over. Joe Rogan's CCO, boom.
Nah, man, Black Flag was created before 2012, pal.
Hey, he's talking about Marvel and DC.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But you know what I'm saying is like start tailoring, use the technology and tailor the product to that audience and utilize those technologies, because monthly floppies should not be expensive, period. They should not be that much money. They should be disposable the way the comics industry has always been. So if you want to collect, then maybe, and just to support the retailers, retail stores, make those fine collectible stores. They can
how about this idea, Art? Since the cost of creating a comic book is very expensive, and we're also trying to get younger readers in, what if your monthly floppies were reprints of older stories?
That's what we were saying earlier.
They're already paid for. You could print them on less expensive paper and keep it right within the price point for kids to buy. And it's a primer for them. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's something.
You direct them to the good stuff. There's a comment in here from Super Mastermind saying storyboard artists suck. They had to dip into comic artists to nab decent hands, so many parts need to be better in marketing and setup. I don't know what that means.
Some suck. They had to dip into comic artists to nab decent hands. So many parts need to be better in marketing.
Are they
I think he's saying that storyboard, they had to grab talent from comic book artists to do storyboards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a storyboard artist, so I suck. But
no, you're one of the
comic. No, you're one of the ones they grab
from comics. Storyboards.
Yeah. And that's always been, especially if you lived in LA. Ever since I broke in, if you lived in LA, you did cartoons, you did storyboards for cartoons and film and commercials, because there was a season for it. Like you'd go in, make the good money in Hollywood, and then after that, you'd go do comic books.
Okay, so here's what King Nolan does. I think everything has to start at the top. So first thing I would do is I would fire all editors whose books were not performing.
Yes.
If the book was Batman, and then they'd be judged at a higher scale because that's the only thing that sells. And so then I would be looking for content. Are you being a good steward to these characters, or are you inserting your own polemics into the stuff? If you are, your shit can't. Then the next thing I do is I give editorial back their exclusivity to make decisions, so that the editors are the final word on the writing and the art teams. Okay, and the direction that it's going. They can stand on that, and they can create something interesting. I'd also give them, as that other gentleman suggested, the edict to start producing comics in other genres. And that I'd be looking at some of the best talent that I could find, probably European talent, to do Westerns and war comics. And,
Supernatural.
Yeah, even romance.
Basketball.
And you know, one of the most popular things are daytime soaps. You know, what if you made your romance comics like that and made it
Graham,
saucy, you know,
there's
and sexy?
a popular manga, at least it was popular in the 90s, called Dunk, and it was just about basketball.
Oh yeah, they got one on fly fishing. I mean,
There you
you know,
go.
golf.
Speed lines of a lure going through the air.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. guy putting on the green. So that would be the first thing I'd start at the top.
Well, back on the editorial, would you then give them incentives? Because I know Marvel's editors had a royalty program. So if you incentivize it, then you also incentivize the editor to get a good team to create a book that sells. You know, because then they get back end money on it.
Mm-hmm. I would, and the other thing too is that nobody's created anything new in about 30 years for either of these companies.
Oh, Billy,
so that's the other incentivization that.
Hey, Graham, Billy's here.
Huh? Oh,
Billy's here.
Okay. Hey, Billy.
What's up? Sorry,
Damn.
I just ran upstairs. What's up, fellas?
What's up?
So I would incentivize creators to come to work for me because and give me some of their good ideas. So then we could use the large platform that Marvel and DC has to push an idea, and that they have a horse in the race. You know,
well, what I used to say all the time on Pontificators is the key is not redesign the heroes. The key is the villains. So if you want a more contemporary hero, create a more contemporary villain, and the hero will then seem contemporary just by doing that. And so where I agree with you, incentivize the talent to create villains for these IPs. So create new Batman villains, create new Superman villains, so on and so forth. And then and then the bottom line would always be to make them more contemporary. So then you can make the hero more relevant by the villain.
That's a good point. That's an excellent
point. Like the swell hater or the golly G killer.
Golly G.
Do you think that Marvel and DC is allowed to make a new villain if it reflects the new heroes? You think that they could make a LGBTQ?
No, Billy, the whole premise here is that each one of us is now the king of DC or Marvel. These are the changes we're making to right the ship. And the towering Oda cunt.
He got you. He got you.
$5. Oh, he's been on before. I like to say it out loud.
Is he a comic hunter?
Yes. Can we also
Nothing like comic hunting.
I think comic hunters are debuting them all.
When I'm reading these super chats, or it'll be shot. Can we also get a litmus test on whether the editor in question can tell the difference between there and they are? Bam, 80% gone. Well, that was that. Yes, I did say that if they were pushing any of those agendas, they'd be canned. So
can I make a suggestion? What I would do if I was I would restart every single issue. If it's a mini series that's been announced as a mini series, I would finish that out. But I would restart every single issue as a number one. But all of those stories for the first year at least are one and done stories.
Okay, now devil's advocate, Billy.
The new 52. They did it with the new 52.
They did.
They weren't one and done stories.
Yeah, they were. They were pitched as one and dones. And until
Court of Owls and stuff like that.
Once that started, the Court of Owls, that's when they broke the rule, and that's when they started crossing over every one of the books. But before that, they weren't. They were writing one and dones.
But
most of them
Aaron had suggested starting over again too, like you just said, and then Dan brought up, or Art brought up the point that at some point you're right back where you started from.
But you know, the funny thing is, if you look at that some point, like Art brought up, if you look at like 1960 as the beginning, you know, that some point actually lasted 30 years. So what's the problem if, say, 25 years in, you just do it again?
Right.
Because
that's also like what I was saying, well, you have a long-term goal. So if you have a long-term goal that you could sustain that, then yeah, maybe it could work. But most of the time they don't.
No, you're right. It's planning and having the right people in charge making those decisions are the key, right? And that's what's not happening, especially right now. You don't have the right people in any position, and you have nobody that's making the right decisions or qualified to make the right decisions.
Graham, did you finish? You didn't finish, did you?
Well, I just wanted to read Kevin Thomas. He has a great idea. What about resurrecting the dead great artists and writers of the past? Too much?
That's your fourth book, Graham, in your series.
Yeah.
Of the Nolan verse.
the ghost writers and artists.
Yeah, the ghost writers and artists.
Yeah, the ghosts of Connecticut versus the ghosts of New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
You know?
Yeah, get those great Connecticut.
Hey fellas, am I or am I not channeling Don Draper and Mad Men right now?
You're not. You have a drink in your hand. We'll put it that way.
I got a collared shirt on.
I don't see any boobs behind you.
Yeah,
that's true.
Renzini, get back here. Take your shirt off. Show them your man boobs.
They're toasted. They're toasted, Billy.
Okay, so throwing Marvel and DC out the window, because that's fantasy pie in the sky, right? But how do we expand our universes to a broader readership doing Indiegogo or crowdfunded books?
Right. Well, that was the next phase, is to talk about crowdfunding.
Okay.
And where that's going to be going in the future, 5-10 years from now, as Marvel and DC begin to implode, and I see nothing on the horizon for them as far as outside the money from their movies and their other media keeping them afloat. I don't see them as a viable publisher going forward. So established readers are looking for the kind of stuff we've been publishing, which is evident by the success of so much of the crowdfunding. They're starved for good content, exciting content, and entertaining content. And so where do we go forward from here? That's right. That's it, Aaron.
Wow. Aaron's pimping a bro and Art's pimping himself. It was funny back in the beginning of the stream. I did catch how Art said, the two of the best books at DC were Deathstroke and Hawkman, and it was written by blah, 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 blah. And I inked both of them.
Yeah, I caught that too.
Well, it goes back to Art's original point. Promotion, advertising.
Cross-pollinate.
That's right.
Hey, Graham, I have no boobs, but I got a pussy.
They didn't do well. I'm sorry. They didn't do well.
Damn, did you just throw that cat? Good Lord.
Sorry.
They didn't do well because they weren't promoted. Yeah, they were good, but they didn't sell well.
No, I got the trade of the Hawkman stuff. I thought it was pretty good.
You know what? That's not always true, Art. There's plenty of books that are great that just don't find that zeitgeist. Whether they're promoted or not. Promotion only goes so far. It's really a mercurial whim of the public sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, but sometimes you can promote the hell out of a piece of shit, and then everybody comes and like, wow, that is fantastic.
No doubt.
That's true.
No doubt. But I think when the promotion comes from within a large company, that this is the newest and latest, greatest, and then the next month this one's the newest, latest, and greatest, that it becomes white noise to the readership.
Right.
Well, that's the marketing, right? Coca-Cola's been marketing for how many years? Candy bars.
But everybody's thirsty, Art, and everybody it loves sugar.
And everybody loves comic books.
No,
do they?
No, they don't. That's the problem. We got to get them to love it. You got a super chat.
Well, but you know what? That's why we need to expand our genres, and that's why the superheroes are sort of dead. It's been overused, and the Europeans and the manga, they do all kinds of genres and all kinds of different stories, and that's why adults, that didn't, read superhero comics, nobody looks down on it. You could be on a French subway or a German, bus, and they've got their books out and they're reading their comics and stuff in their nice hardcover.
It's like watching a movie.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody's digging on it,
In the short term, if I may, in the short term, she is going to be back in comic shops through Diamond. And we're going to go look at all sorts of avenues of distribution. A couple of retailers came up to me at New York Comic Con, and they were mentioning a couple of the other, maybe couple of other outlets that they use that the others are using too, and to get our books out there because, I see someone wearing a Deadpool shirt and he's at my booth. He's like, "Wow, is this your comic?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I never heard of it. When did it come out?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
30 years ago.
Yeah, and 28 years ago, and I've sold almost 4 million of them. And he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I think that's the first step for us is to get back into comic shops. We'll be launching. We're going to break down our Return of the Warrior saga into 9 issues. So I already have 9 issues in the can for Diamond. A couple of retailers mentioned that they want to do special editions, so hopefully that's it. But I like that idea of getting back into comic shops. I think we should all try to do that with our books. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We're dividing them into floppies. So, a 62-page story will become a 3 20-page stories, and just go forward with that. That said, I also think that we have a great future that we can do, as you were saying, Graham. You mentioned like the European model, and we can become boutique publishers and get
what we are right now.
Well, that's what we are right now.
Yeah, but maintain it, keep doing it, keep that core audience, keep putting product out, keep doing special editions, things like that. The second chances, Ethan seems to be doing really well with that. I think that's a great idea. Start to do like you did, Graham. Look, it's already there. You started fulfilling the 2 giant size, 2-fisted manly tales, and then you were able to launch the Ghost of Manakuba Key before you even finished fulfilling the last book. And that's really encouraging because that's how business works. That's how Diamond works. That's how, how when you order books from stores. So that's another thing to do is don't wait till that book is, if it's at the printer and you get them, you have your delivery date, even if they just get to you, launch that second campaign.
And let me take care of Installation 7. Thank you for that $5 super chat. Question for the professionals. What is your favorite Batman or Superman comic people don't talk about enough, which goes unappreciated by most? That's very specific.
And it has to have come out in 1988. So that's really specific.
Well, it's easy for me. My favorite is Joker Devil's Advocate, which was written by Chuck and I and illustrated by me. It was people say it's the best Joker story ever done, and nobody's read it because DC did not promote it.
There you go. And
so that was an easy one for me. And then I got one more here. TTO says, see how I avoided it that time? Thanks for that $10 super chat, my friend. That is a good cigar. As the big 2 start folding, CG will start picking up more and more of the market share. I see the chief problem being logistics. What happens when books start getting 10, 20, 50,000 sales?
You can afford
that's
to
a
help.
great problem to have.
Yeah, you can afford to get a crew to get them out to people.
That's really not that big of a. That's a good, like Graham said, that's a good problem to have because at that point you can easily hire some help.
Yeah, that's what Eric July did. He actually got a warehouse and hired a whole staff.
Well, I mean, that's what Ethan's doing.
Yeah, money helps solve a lot of those problems.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that.
I'd keep all the money and it just takes 6 months to fulfill.
That doesn't surprise me. You'd be working your mother to death.
I know.
Literally.
Poor Nana Faithy.
Poor grandma.
Poor Nana. Nana's like, remember in what movie was it? Was it Billy Madison? No, Happy Gilmore. Remember Happy Gilmore and his grandmother was in the old folks' home? Remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Ben Stiller always messing
and he's
with
making it, and he's making all the old people sew blankets for him, and he's selling the
I
blankets.
forgot about Ben Stiller. He was an asshole, man.
He had that sweet mustache.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's like,
So we're doing a
hurt.
lot of the stuff that we talked about the big 2 needing to do in Comicsgate and in crowdfunding. And one of the keys is what we're doing right now is broadcasting and getting out there. And as creators and the owners of our products, you don't see these guys under exclusive contract to Marvel and DC making, $1,000 a page out there promoting their books like we are.
Yeah,
We're not allowed to. They've been gagged by them.
I'm sure they have, but then one would expect them to do the great job themselves, and they're not. And let's face it, nobody can promote something you love better than you. It's disingenuous. It's corporate. When we get on and we talk about our books and our stories, and we not only promote us, but we also promote each other. Whereas you never see Marvel promoting a DC book or DC promoting a Marvel book, but Compass Comics will promote a Crusade book, or any of you guys, or whatever.
Well, I mean, let's be real. Empire Comics getting a little big for his britches. Might have to.
I think so. I think so. Hey, Graham, have you thought about? And I thought about this with Sergeant Rock. Have you thought about now? I know you said that they never put a the Batman book. What's it called?
Devil's Advocate.
The Devil Advocate. They never did it in a hardcover.
No, they did it in a hardcover.
Oh, but it's sold out. Is it available through Diamond, through DC, in a trade paperback? Do you know?
They did it as a trade paperback right after the hardcover in 1990. Whenever it was.
They just haven't reprinted
it. They've never re-released it.
Right. See, that's a good in for us, that we go to these series that we did that we really like, and you approach them at DC Comics. You say, "Listen, I'd like to buy 5,000 copies of that graphic novel." They have the files, or we could, you know what I mean? And you want to license it from them. Then you can do an Indiegogo and call it the Artist Edition, limited to 5. Even if it's 2,000. They're going to want to sell. They're going to want to produce 2,000. They're going to want to sell 2,000 books.
They're not going to want Comics logo on it.
I don't think they would do it. I really don't think they would do it.
Have to put the comic.
I don't think they would either.
I don't either. I don't think.
I don't think they would do it.
You don't think that they would see if it was, well, okay, maybe not. Then you're right. But I think if it's offered, say they offer it, right, and they do a book, that you want, say Flash Rebirth. What's to stop Ethan from then going to his local retail comic shop and say, buy 1,000 of these? Then they can buy them, and then Ethan can do an Indiegogo as the Artist Edition with an artist signature series with an inserted.
Yeah, but ultimately, why go backwards, man? We all own our own IPs right now. Like I don't even find. I mean, maybe some people would want to do it, but for me, it seems like moving backwards, and I have absolutely no interest in playing in that sandbox anymore.
I'm with you, Art.
I mean, hopefully I never have to go back. I would really like to, like I've said before, I'd love to retire here at CG. I would really like to just keep writing and creating IP and doing this stuff and going on YouTube shows and just wowing the audience with my brilliance. But
well, let us know when that begins.
You can be replaced.
Well, you convinced me. I agree. It was a stupid idea. Strike that from the record.
No. I mean, some people,
but in Billy's world,
some people it might be something that they want to do, But for me, it's like, I just don't have any interest in it.
I mean, one thing is just spreading the word more because, we go on a lot of different channels and stuff, but there's other channels that, somebody brought up with Cordrath about Dungeons and Dragons and looking at YouTube channels that are specific to Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, that's cool, but I don't know if somebody comes to my YouTube channel and they're like, oh, I want to get a hold of this guy. The only thing I think they can do is leave a comment and hope I read it. So I wouldn't know how to get a hold of somebody because I thought it was a good idea.
Here's a good idea. Right over, not far from my house, there's those little coffee, what do you want to call them? Stands that are in they put them in parking lots and stuff and Dutch Brothers, and you can just drive through and they've got this bikini coffee place, right? Where they just have chicks in bikini serving coffee, right? So I'm going to open my own comic book shop. I'm only going to sell CG books. I'm only going to hire chicks in bikinis to sell them. Now, don't tell me that won't work.
That won't work.
not
that won't work for you, Aaron, because your beautiful wife would kill you.
Right. No. I like where Aaron's going. Say more.
Yeah. There you go. So,
I'm not against the idea. I
love
the
it's like booth babes, right? At your booth at a convention, right? That draws the people in.
I mean, you are correct in that aspect.
I think what we're doing right now, what's exciting about it is that there's no parameters. Like we could do anything. Like you were saying, Andy, you could contact
Hit that like button, people.
What's that? 8 more likes. Ooh,
yeah, 8 more likes to 200.
Yeah,
do it.
Somebody Slack, we get a lot of people in here. Hit that like button.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm talking to you, Art. Hit that like button.
The funny thing is, with all 6 of us, he only needs 2 more.
but yeah, like you
right now.
Like Andy, you could go anywhere. Like you have crossover ability, you know, and Dennis definitely talks the talk. So you could go on Dungeon and Dragon type of platforms and different you know, chat rooms, and you could promote that because it fits right into that. And to be honest, like Ethan said early on with Comicsgate, he used to have all that Star Wars stuff, and so Star Wars was the big crossover for him with Comics Pro Secrets. So that was the key that he used to say always at the beginning. So if you could tie into a different audience, then also you can expand the audience. You know what I mean? Like they might come in through your book, but then they might like, you know, Wraith of God or She or, you know, something else, you know? So this is the way we can grow, you know, what we're doing. That's how we can build this thing. So I say, do it, man. Get Dennis on it.
According to Pedro Ang, my Booth Babe comment pushed the like buttons up over 200. So
it's now.
Take credit for that.
So the thank you goes to Aaron. Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to say.
Yeah, women got it.
Well, you know what was funny is during COVID, you know, and everything is shut down. You're not going to shut down the stripper business because they had drive-in strippers. You know, you could drive your car in, and they had like a whole tent thing, and then the girls would be there. It was the fun. And you sit in your car,
and they would bring you over a rack of CG comics for you to read while you were watching the stripper.
I guess you had to throw the singles at them or something.
Yeah, you just make paper airplanes out of them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Like high school.
Like high school.
Yeah, like, you know, in the car, you make out in the car, the girl takes.
I watch the news. That's how I know.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Hey, look who's here. The man himself.
Up, man.
Art is the past and the future. It is.
Yes.
Wow, very
That's the sad part. He'll outlive all of us.
Hey, John, the check is in the mail.
Vero Frady, thank you for that $5 super chat. CG, free to be.
That's right.
Free to
Hell
be.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've always said that one of the great things about this whole new paradigm of publishing is the interaction that we have directly with our customers. We're not dealing with Diamond. We're not dealing with retailers. We're not dealing with publishers. We're not just a cog in the wheel to produce something that somebody else is going to benefit from. We can go directly to our fans and to our backers and have these wonderful conversations like we're having tonight, you know, and you guys get to, you know, chime in and put your 2 cents in too. It's that give and take, that back and forth, which I think is not only creatively invigorating, but also I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful relationship.
Well, hopefully it's like some of the ideas that we threw out here, somebody's listening, or they'll get parroted back to somebody that maybe can do something with them. When I first kind of started doing, you know, these independent books, working with CG, you know, Comicsgate and all that, I used to think like, how do we fix the industry? How do we fix it? You know, and I would think about this stuff all the time. And then I did come to the conclusion finally, it's like, it wouldn't matter. Like these guys are smart guys. We've had these conversations with other people in the industry for decades, and just nothing changes. Nothing happens. And so the thing is, why be aligned with something that's so limited? You know, with people that you have to rely on so many different pieces for your success, where now we don't have to do that. When COVID hit and the lockdowns hit, that's when I got more confidence than I ever had in this industry ever, because books were still selling. The CG books were selling. Diamond was going away. Retailers were going away. The whole industry, pencils down, all that shit, right? We were still selling books, man.
Yeah, man.
Nothing changed.
Yeah, man.
And I was like, holy shit, man, this should be freaking me out. Normally, this would have been freaking me out. My wife and I would be like chomping at the bits, like, what are we going to do if the industry goes away? What are we going to do if this, that, or the other thing happens? And then I was like, no, man, we're independent of that. And we've already proved it, man. We already succeeded. While pencils were down, we were selling thousands and thousands of books, you know? So
and thank God for DC and Marvel screwing things up. Because, and I say that with no humor involved, because they drove so many readers away that were hungry for good content. Without that hunger for good content, we wouldn't be able to do what we do.
And creators as well.
It's right. So we're able to create stuff that we've always wanted to do, and it also reflects what the market is out there is looking for. These fine folks here are digging on it, and they're loving the fact that there's all these different genre comics. You know, there's just about everything right here in this group right here. We've got superheroes, we have horror, we have Western, we have sci-fi, we have feudal Japanese, adventure tales. That's a ton of genres right there that aren't being handled by anybody else, you know?
Yeah, and most of the CG books are all that and more. You know, very few of them are more traditional superhero type stories. So this is not only diverse in just talent and the way we're marketing, but also just in the titles and the IPs that we're creating.
I like what Marcus Kilgrew said.
Yeah, I was just going to pull that up. Being a CG backer is more like being a patron of the arts, like supporting Da Vinci.
Man.
Thank you
well
so
said,
much,
Marcus. Well said.
Yeah, that's funny. Art and Da Vinci were really good friends. They'd have beer together. So
yeah,
so is it true? Art is it like
we
that?
had a beer together?
Hey, was he a good kisser, Art?
You know what? He would always like when he would drop things, and then he'd go like, "Could you get that for me, Art?" And so I'd bend over, and then I was like, "Wait a minute!"
and then Art was like, "Hey, Da Vinci, pencils down while I'm bent over."
Whoa!
Yeah, Art was the Vitruvian man. I don't know if
never turn your back on Da Vinci. That's all I have to say.
That's right.
Oh, you'll be Da Vinci. Winching.
The clinching.
Oh, I think this show's over.
We should do it. Some love for Andy. Chris Green with $1.99.
My man.
Chat.
On his
well,
way.
thank you very much, Chris. Really appreciate it. Thank you all.
That's
almost
awesome.
to that 1,000 mark, dude. That's the big bench.
Did we ever get Billy's take on like how to,
his was a combination of all three. Three.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
well, I guess the show is over then.
Yeah, I think we've ironed out all the things that are wrong in the comic book world, and we've given solutions to fix them. Some of these things we're instituting ourselves, and I mean, the bottom line is comics are here to stay. As long as there's passionate people and there's passionate fans, the hunger for good storytelling will always be there. This is a unique American art form, and only the presentation is going to change. So we're no longer doing floppies. We're moving on to other things. We're going to move into digital. We're going to move into the crowdfunding thing, and eventually into NFTs and other futuristic ways to tell stories. So that's the good news.
Well, can I intercede a little bit? Like I used to hear people always talking about like, oh, comics aren't cool, comics aren't this, comics aren't that. How do you compete against like video games or cartoons or all these other things? Well, comics are unique unto themselves. If you had this aura that they're cool, like you were selling them that they're cool, every kid wants them, you start marketing them that way, then perception changes. But there's one thing that comics, and everybody overlooks this, is comic books aren't like film or any of these other things. You only get what you put into the to the comic. You have to read it. You have to be interactive. Between those panels, you have to fill that gap. You have to be involved with it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It doesn't entertain you. You know, it does, but not in the same way where you don't have to put anything into it.
As a reader of a comic, you're participating.
Right.
I always tell that to people. If you saw a guy stepping on a ledge and the next thing you saw was him falling, you saw him step off. I never drew that.
Right.
Right.
And that's the beauty of this, and that's why it stimulates creativity, makes kids think. It's way more effective, I think, than most of those other things. Video games, whatever. I mean, everything's spelled out for you. I guess there's some skill involved where you have to maneuver through. But comic books,
badass.
You really have to
say the same thing.
Be invested. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Art. All right, gentlemen. Let's say we've been gone for 2 hours.
Pretty good. And back black and white. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go around the horn. Tell us about every one of us, in case you don't know and you're new to the show. We all have campaigns going. The links to them are in the description of the show, so you can click on those and it'll take you to everything you need to see. But Andy, you want to tell us about what you got going?
Sure. Core Draft: The Reckoning is up right now. Got a few more backers during the stream, so thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. Going by this count, it's 892, so 8 away from 900. Let's crush that. Tomorrow is actually, I'm going live with Dennis around 12:30 in the afternoon for a few hours. Going to have some surprises as it's the 30-day, first 30-day closeout. So you want to definitely be there for that to see what the surprises are. Core Draft is basically what if Conan was dropped into Game of Thrones? It's that type of deal. So if you like
it's a good elevator pitch. I like
that. Thank you. That is courtesy of Bud Root. He came up with that when we were driving because we laid out the whole story for him, and he was like,
Bud.
Dude, that sounds like
great guy.
Conan dropped in Game of Thrones. And I was like, that's awesome. We're taking it.
And then you kicked him out of the car.
And then I said, now get out. I've had enough of you and your big boob women. Just kidding. And if you're a fan of Bud Root, just one, look at that 2-page spread, guys. Come on. Killing myself here.
Incredible, dude. You're doing the work of your career.
Thank you, guys. And since I mentioned Bud, I got to give a shout out to his cover. Right there, the Bud Root cover. You can get all the other covers are available as add-ons. You can pick and choose. So there you go. Check that out. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Sorry.
Got a couple of these things to get through. Nick Capello, thank you for that $5 super chat, my friend. Comics are cool because they invest in the reader as well as their own talent.
There you go. Better said. Yeah.
And Randy Howell is here with a $2 Canadian super chat. 30 hours. Andy, your closeout is at 4 p.m. tomorrow.
It probably just needs to update. It's 3 o'clock every time.
It's actually 3 a.m. is when it's up, but
Eastern
I'm actually driving to Florida tomorrow night, so I'm not going to be in front of a computer. I'll be in a car, so that's why we're going on.
Are you coming through Macon? You coming through Macon, dude?
I don't know how we're going. Actually, I don't know.
Well, let me know. Let me know, man.
I will. So yeah, so 12:30 tomorrow. Join us.
Excellent. Is my
Daniel?
Turn? Yeah. I want to thank everybody that has supported the book. I want to thank the chat for being here and having great insights. My book, you can find it on Indiegogo and in the description. It's Black Flag. It's my opus, my masterpiece, and so grateful for the patience. And also, again, always grateful for the insight of this panel. It gives you a lot to think about because, in a way, your question, Graham, about if we were king of Marvel, king of DC, well, you are the king of Compass. You're the king of Astonishing. I'm the king of Incredible, king of Empire, king of Hack Shack, king of Crusade. You know what I'm saying? Like these are ours, and we learn from each other. It's a new day. The future of comics? Question mark. You're looking at a piece of it right now.
That's
in
right.
our hands, baby.
The history books will have our names in them
Lansdowne.
when we're long gone.
Yeah.
Except for
Anybody
Art,
write
he
the
will
history
never
of comics?
die.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to go head towards the Lazarus pit after this.
Right.
Art
will be still around while he's laughing on our graves.
Where do you keep the portrait? Where do you keep it?
Dorian Gray portrait.
Dorian Gray.
Make America great again.
2 words. Oh, good.
That's great.
All right, so I guess it's my turn. I have the sequel to the hit Wraith of God Blood Hunters. You can share my screen, Graham. I pulled it up there.
I'll do that.
Thank you so much. So it's available right now. We are just dollars away from 114,000. We want to get to 120 because then you get the free stretch goal of the Esther Queen of Hearts playing card that will go very nicely with the Wraith of God Let me try that again. Wraith of God Ace of Spades card that you got in the first campaign. I want to bring everybody's attention to the fact that we do have a Bisley cover available now.
Oh, yeah.
That's a painting by Simon Bisley.
Did you get the original?
Yeah, he hasn't sent it to me yet because he's varnishing it. But
are you gonna huff it?
Huh?
Are you gonna huff it?
I don't know what that means.
Sniff it.
Oh,
Sniff it.
Yeah. I give it a hard. Hey, Brian Scanlon.
You better
my man
believe
Brian
it.
Scanlon is in the chat. It's his birthday tomorrow. Everybody
Nice.
wish him a happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday,
Mr.
Brian.
Scanlon.
Yeah, that's my dude.
So I got a wraparound cover option, got the Tales of Suspense cover option, and the Tomb of Dracula tribute cover option.
I love that.
Thank you, sir. Along with t-shirts, shot glasses, all sorts of fun stuff. Colors by Gabe L.T.A.B. on the Wraith of God story. Colors by Dan Lawless on the Garbage Man story, which is a backup in the book. And you also get Nightclub backup story. And you're now getting Kit Carter as a back. So there's 3 backup stories. This thing's going to be 100 pages, folks.
It's a 3-in-1.
Hey, go back. Can you go back to the Dracula Tomb of Dracula
Absolutely.
cover?
Yep.
I just want to say that I think your female figure there is better than Adam's version.
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh, shots fired.
Thank you, Graham. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, especially the perspective on the legs.
Yeah.
I think it's better.
I probably put a little more time into mine than Neil did. You know, Neil probably just crapped that thing out in about 30 minutes.
Probably, and somebody changed the Dracula head, but
Yeah. Other than that, no.
So it's a win for Aaron. So take the win, Aaron.
I will. Thank you so much. I
Aaron,
appreciate
will we be
that.
seeing more legs and breasts drawings from you?
Well, there is 6 brides, and not with 7 brothers. It's 6 brides of the vampire are going to be in this issue, and they're flowing nightgowns. So I mean,
Hey, Aaron, as a stretch goal, could I just suggest 2 things?
Sure.
An Esther chastity belt, or a garter belt.
There you. Hey, no, that's actually a good idea. The garter belt. I could actually afford to do that.
The garter belt was a real one, but then I thought I'll
Okay.
throw the chastity belt in there too.
But as you can see here, these chicks have these white nightgowns. They're not exactly see-through, but they're sheer. So there's going to be some. There's going to be a lot of heaving bosom, just like you might find in a Hammer vampire film.
Excellent.
What about a Esther self massager?
Oh my God.
Probably not going to go that direction.
Okay.
But anyway, so this is open for. I extended it. We did the 30-day closeout a couple days ago. I extended it for 2 weeks only. So there's 12 days left on that. Let's get that to 120 so you guys can get that trading card. And there you go. Thank you, Graham.
Okay.
To bear.
Mr. T-Bear.
Well, I'm going to share something, and it's not something I have done.
I want to see it.
Can you see it?
Oh, there we go.
John Malin. Hello, John Malin.
This is the great John Malin. This is Graveyard Shift Omega Storm. The end of the world is approaching fast. These guys got to come together if they hope.
Come together
right now.
Right now.
So he is. He's got 14
Garbage
days
music.
left of his first month. 59,020, 623 backers. And if you guys don't know, Malin does not go in demand. So if you're going to get one of these books, you got to get it now. So get in here, get in quick. It looks fantastic. Is this the 3rd or 4th installment? I don't think
It's It's in between 4 and 5, so it's a supplemental. There's no number on it.
But what I meant is is it the 5th book, the 5th Graveyard Shift book?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay,
because the next one's number 5. So
what is it, Renzini? Renzini's telling. Renzini is listening.
It's just a supplemental. He does supplementals in between or to go along with the Graveyard Shift books when they come out.
Oh my gosh, look at this thing. Holy shit.
Nice. Yeah, that's a nice panel.
Oh my gosh. He just inspired me to work harder. Look at that sucker.
That's great.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, this is the great John Malin. He's writing this. His creator
Tommy Patterson.
Yes. And his co-creator is Mark Polton. I believe has a live campaign right now as well. So can I share a piece of black and white artwork that
absolutely,
I'm
bud.
right now?
While you're doing that, I'm gonna let Smokey the Concat know that yes, Billy and I will be doing the Hawaiian shirt and cigar night. It'll be Saturday night in Fayetteville, North Carolina. This weekend.
Got to hang with him. We got to hang with Smokey in South Carolina.
Yes, we did.
Go ahead and share. There it is.
Ooh,
nice.
Look at that textures.
Fabulous.
Really looks great art. Really does. Killing it.
Yeah, this is really, really nice.
Thank you so much. I appreciate.
I might even back this.
How dare you?
You bastard!
Don't break your streak. You're.
Damn.
No, I backed it. Art. I backed it.
Blam blam.
Back him.
Yeah, I like that gun effect there. The blast thing. I've never seen one.
Cool. Is he shooting out potatoes? What is that?
Yeah, what is that?
It's like plasma. It's more like plasma versus like bullets.
Plasma spooge.
It's a
plasma gun.
Spooge. I haven't heard that one. In a long time.
So yeah, go back black and white. Today it's in demand, but there are more pressing books like John Malin's.
Okay,
this is live right now.
Mr. Teen Sensation.
Yeah, can you share it, or do I have to share it?
If you send it to me, I'll share it.
I sent you the link. Remember, you asked us early to send the link.
Oh, he sent that.
Put it in the description.
Yeah, that was for the description.
Oh shit!
Come on, Billy, come prepared. Jeez.
Lord have mercy.
Oh my God!
Boomity boom boom.
I'm
not the only boom
I had my American Legion meeting. Leave me alone.
Billy's got priorities, and it's not
private chat.
Yeah, that's
to decipher that. I had to drink.
Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, and I had to fix myself a drink.
Go drink with some friends.
So now I gotta open it up, and
you gotta do the work.
There. Oh, I could have just shared myself. Oh,
yeah, because you just popped that link.
All right, I'll share it. I'll share it. I'll share it.
Right.
Do you want me to talk about your campaign too, Billy, or can you do that?
Please.
You had somebody to take your shoes off for you, Billy?
Yeah, I think Niall has spoiled Billy.
Is share screen present now?
Yes.
Oh, see.
Thanks, Rob, fellows. I'll see you tomorrow for 31 Days of Monsters.
Good
All right, about the changeling. All right, here we go.
Okay, Shisako, look at that.
There she is.
Thank you. All right, so this campaign, I think I'm going to end it next Monday on the Kings.
Oh.
Oh shoot, will we be home by then, Graham? Yeah.
Not me. I get home Monday.
Yeah, I get home Monday too. All right, well maybe the next Monday. But fulfillment has begun. We're in a foot race with the powers that be over at Compass Comics to see who can get their books out quick enough. Just like last time, but no, the fulfillment's begun. I got the great Renzini right here. He's got a great job. Makes a lot of money, and he still comes in and helps me out. And he's sitting here working in our studio. He's got a big old pile of books over there.
Good man.
Been packing them up. The books look great. I'm so proud of it. And just thank you all for supporting us. Also, we're at the New York Comic Con. So if I can share BillyTucci.com, if you don't mind there.
Well, you can.
Is that all right, Graham?
For you, Billy? Okay.
All right. Thanks, pal. Share screen. Matt,
present screen.
Buddy.
You got to present now.
Billy's like waving his hand like that'll work.
Okay, there it is. It's up. You can share it now. All right. Let's go. Here's BillyTucci.com if any of you guys don't mind going to it. And if I can click on it for our New York Comic Con exclusives, which of course the screen does not share. Fuck me.
Oh.
Well, that was a whole lot.
Hang on. I opened it up to the store. All right, there you go. I apologize. There you go. So we have our New York Comic Con exclusives. This is the 25th anniversary of our second Eisner Award losing comic, Sheik Haidon.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, it's all about being nominated, really is.
Yeah. It's just a game, Billy.
It's just a game.
It's a game. Yeah, same thing.
It's just the WWE belt, Aaron.
No, but guys, if you go to BillyTucci.com, we have these cool exclusive. We have a few left. There's only 199 of each. I think we have like 10 left. So if you guys want it, it's a great book. We've got Stan Sakai on it. Mike Kaluta, as I had said. Val Mayrick illustrated a story in it. David Mack worked on it. A bunch of great stories. Peter Gutierrez wrote it. It's a book we're really, really proud of, and I'm so excited to offer this 25th anniversary edition. So
fantastic.
That's that. And I'm looking forward to seeing Graham Nolan this weekend, homie.
Yeah, buddy.
Hey, are you bringing cigars?
Yeah.
Do you bring me 2 of those ones you like?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
You're gonna bring him some whiskey he likes?
Well, we got to pick up the whiskey down there. Hell
right.
yeah, man. I
You're not flying with whiskey.
I'm a good time. I'm not cheap. I'll buy him. I want to buy him off of him.
I want to drink with you guys.
I've got the Ghost of Metacumba Key, which is we got 20 days left. We just started last week. We're up to 51,120 with 773 backers. And if you haven't, I want you as a backer too. So please click the link. It's at the description and go check this out. The newest thing here is we got a bunch of different covers. We got the main cover here by me and Kelsey. The EC cover by me.
Love that.
Yeah, me too.
This is the black and white version. It's going to have glow in the dark logos on it.
That's cool.
And the newest one is the Kelly Jones embossed cover.
Nice.
So this figure and the logos will be embossed on that one. It's going to look pretty damn awesome. And because I love you guys, I'm going to share for the first time the first page of the Ghost of Metacumba Key that I finished inking today. Are you ready? Billy, give me a timpani. Give me a timpani, Billy. Oh, that'll work. All right. Boom.
Yes.
I recognize that dog.
I recognize that security agent.
Look at that security agent.
Wait a sec. It says.
Look at that dog.
Yep.
T-Bear.
Oh.
I showed my wife the layout. She's like, "Oh man, the dog's been immortalized."
Here he is in the bottom barking at this guy. You know.
I think it's gonna break her heart when you're not gonna kill the dog, are you?
No, I don't kill dogs.
I don't kill dogs.
You're gonna kill the guard though.
I'm
not sure if the guard's gonna survive, but the dog will live on.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's all.
Well, yeah, don't kill that dog, bro.
Once the guard dies, the dogs are gonna be hungry and might eat the guard's nose.
Is Art guarding a restaurant by any chance?
Hey, Graham, was it in the Blob? And forgive me for this because I have not seen this movie in 35, 40 years.
Okay.
Didn't the Blob kill the puppy? Didn't it eat the puppy?
Yeah.
He's behind the door. Oh, I remember.
Oh wait, no. No, it did not kill the dog. The dog lived.
But you thought the dog lived, right?
No, he did live.
You thought the dog died. Wasn't the dog behind the door?
Yeah, it was the old man's dog, and you thought that he got killed. And then when the teenagers show up, they find the dog, and the girl tells Steve McQueen, "Oh, we got to take the dog with us."
Oh, thank God!
I love that movie as a kid.
That scared the pants off of me when I was little.
Man, that stupid old man that's got it on the stick, and he's just like,
yeah.
I'm like, no, you idiot.
Yeah,
I remember when they froze it. Remember they froze it? I'm like, why don't they just blow the shit out of that thing now?
Because there'd be little blobs all over the place.
Oh,
blow it?
That's why they parachuted into the Arctic, where it would stay frozen until U.S. auto industry melted all the ice, and released the Blob. So
and then they found Captain America as well, and he took care
that's
of the
right.
And that was it.
Hey, you know what? We should be thankful for this global warming, because it what gave us Captain America.
That's right.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like,
All right, gang.
Hasn't the planet been warming since, I don't know, for 14,000 years?
It goes up and down. It goes up and down.
Perhaps.
All right, my friends. Thank you for your insights. That was a great show. Thank you, chat, for joining us. Next week, as usual, we rotate again. We go back to the A's, and Mr. Lepresti will be our host on his channel.
Excellent, Aaron. What are we doing? Do you know?
You're
Muted.
muted.
Oh, no, I'm not.
No,
Aaron's muted.
Aaron's muted.
Aaron, you're muted.
We're doing Halloween trivia. So
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna mess you boys up with that.
Oh, dang.
Is it just about like candy, or is it about horror movies?
Candy.
Comics, man.
anything that would be associated with the Halloween season.
I'm
Okay,
hoping
good.
there's a category of scream queens.
Oh, well,
Oh,
you know
heck.
there's going to be. We got to keep Billy happy so Billy can say,
Now,
oh,
wait,
will you look at that?
what?
Yeah, there it is.
What?
Are there any Shanu questions?
Oh my gosh, that's how you find out who read your book, Graham.
That's right.
Hey, can we pull it out and show our Halloweeners?
Oh, yeah.
And you talk about me, Halabeaners.
Oh no, it'll be good. It'll be a good time.
All right, excellent.
We should all bring candy.
I'm going to kill my wife. No.
Whoa. It's a joke.
No. My man, I don't know if you guys are doing when you guys fulfill, and that's a joke. I love my wife. I'm not going to kill my wife, for God's sake.
I try to fulfill my wife.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Nice play.
Ding.
Because Debbie uses our American Express a lot for fulfilling.
Yeah.
And she puts everything on that. Man, my damn credit score went down 14 points.
What? Oh,
Why
that's
did you forget to hit the bill or something?
Well, yeah, we got to the end of the month to pay. It's at the end of the month.
Yeah,
but
'cause
she's
it's every
bought
30.
all the supplies, all the ship station is on that. What's the other one? The labels one, all that.
Stamps.com?
Yeah, that's all stamps.com. That's all on the thing. And I watch my credit go down every.
You guys don't have a corporate. You don't have a corporate credit card?
No, but I want to get one. She says we don't need it because she already itemizes everything anyway. But we're gonna look into that because I don't know if you get a better rating with that.
You get more benefits, and it's also easier to for taxes. You can just pull up the entire thing and boom.
Yeah, it's all right off.
Yeah,
It's really good for impressing chicks too.
Yeah. All right, gang. We're going to close her out here. Tomorrow morning is day 12 of 31 Days of Monsters. We're talking about The Changeling, 1981 with George C. Scott. So please come on, wake up early, set your alarm, grab a coffee, and let's talk some monsters tomorrow.
Love it.
Until next time, my friends, have a great night, and we'll see you soon, maybe even in North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.